The Knicks just completed their title run, and the offseason storylines are all about these other teams who are blowing up their teams to try and compete with the Knicks. But everyone is missing one thing. The real reason why the Knicks offense was so dominant in this postseason run. And to be honest, they've only even scratched the surface, only hit a fraction of what this offense can be next season. No, I'm not talking about Mo Diawara or bringing back Shamet and Alvarado. I'm not talking about adding LeBron. None of that. It seems like people have forgotten that the Knicks made a giant shift in their entire offensive scheme in the middle of the playoffs.
You now shift your pie chart from people just thinking heavy, JB pick and roll, JB ISO, to now the demographic of your offense shifts, which means the defense can't be just keyed in on just one action now, so having, like you said, Cat at the hub, at the elbow, at the top of the key, it allows JB to be off the ball where he can set a rip screen for OG to the rim, and if they mess that up, OG gets a dunk. If they mess that up and both of them go with OG to the rim, now you got JB coming off clean, either for a clean shot or a DHO. Now the defense is playing catch up. So yeah, I think that's helped their demographic out a lot, their pie chart on what they can do offensively. And it just, a defense can't just key on a couple actions anymore, and I thought over the last couple of years with New York, you kind of got a good rhythm of how they were going to play, and the ball was going to end up in a certain way every single time. And obviously we know that JB is going to still has his ISO game where he's really good. He's still going to have his pick and roll game where he's really good. But to sprinkle in a little bit of, off ball action, a little bit of pinch post action, with a different hub, I think that helps out a lot.
That was heading into the Eastern Conference Finals, a conversation of how they saw Cat play in the Atlanta and the 76ers series, how the Knicks shifted their entire offense when they were down 2-1 to the Hawks and then just started blowing out teams every single game. But they weren't going to be able to do that against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Certainly they couldn't, right? Wrong. Every great offense puts the defense in a position where they have to make a choice. And if you even mess up a little bit, the offense can take advantage of that mess up. And so with the ball in Cat's hands, giving him simple and easy reads, knowing that he can still take the ball off the dribble, he can also hit the shot in your face. Now all of these things combined with the ability of OG slashing and Jalen Brunson hitting shots, all of that working in tandem made the Knicks offense something it hadn't been in a really long time. Unpredictable. But what did we see happen in the San Antonio Spurs series? Cat didn't have as big an impact in that series as he had in the previous three. Was it because Cat was playing poorly? Was it because he wasn't doing the right things? Was it because he was getting quick fouls and out of the game? Well, maybe partly that one. But in all honesty, the Spurs came with a game plan to stop the hub play of Karl Anthony Towns. And that's partly why we needed Jalen Brunson to drop 45 points in Game 5. It's why we needed huge games from people like OG Anunoby to get us where we needed to be. And it's also why the games were a little bit closer, because on the fly, teams were making adjustments and playing it differently.
As one of the assistant coaches I talked to about the offense with Cat as the hub, because I said, wow, this is a new look for you guys. And he's like, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till we get a full training camp with this. There is so many layers, but we don't have enough time to put it in. So next year, he's like, our offense is going to be completely bigger with many more options. He goes, but right now we're seeing the counters. So we already know when we do film in the offseason, all the counters that teams showed us in the playoffs, we're going to have answers for them all.
Yeah.
So this offense, scary to say, could even be better next year.
You see, this is more than just talking about Karl Anthony Towns and his generational ability to hit the three ball. This is more about a player who's all of a sudden bought into a system that puts him in a place to be a facilitator, not worrying about whether or not he's getting his shots or getting his touches or getting his chances at the basket, but realizing that he can impact the game in a way that very few players across the league can do. This is what Jokic can do for the Denver Nuggets and why they're always in the conversation to be right there in the championship. But they've had other issues. Their defense is not as strong. But the Knicks defense has been elite with players like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges being able to play those roles. And then you have Josh Hart doing all kinds of things. Listen to what LeBron James says about the role players that come alongside this offensive shift.
Credit to the bench as well. Like you said, Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson. And even early in the season, people were wondering, why Jordan Clarkson wasn't playing. And I think Mike Brown was like, hey, I got to have guys that's going to compete on both ends of the floor. And I think Jordan took that into account, and he competes like hell on the defensive end of the floor, and we already know his shot making ability on the other end. Landry Shamet, these guys are coming in and they're keeping the pressure, they're keeping the momentum of what the starters are doing. And like you said, it starts with Josh Hart. I mean, we already know that what he's going to do on the floor doesn't always show up in the box scores. The diving for the loose balls, the getting the extra possessions. He's a one-man fast break as well, but he just does all the dirty work. And, that's always been a staple with, listen, when you talk about the Knicks, they've always had one of those guys. When they've won, they've had one of those guys.
Now, admittedly, yes, we no longer have Mitchell Robinson on the roster. We brought in Andre Drummond. It wasn't the move I wish we had done. Andre Drummond is kind of a shell of himself. He can hit the corner three, and that might play into even this, that if Cat and him are on the floor at the same time, though I don't think that's going to happen. I really see Mo Diawara being able to play the 4 at times for OG to get a rest. But all that having said, those role players can still be on the floor for this kind of offensive set. Players like Landry Shamet, Deuce McBride, Jose Alvarado being able to be knockdown shooters as Cat is able to still facilitate can really help that second unit. And then when not, we have players that can play with the ball in their hands. So having Alvarado and Kolek and McBride and Shamet and Diawara be able to create offense off the bench will make it even more difficult for teams to say, okay, we may not be able to compete with that starting 5, or we just hope to keep it close with the starting 5, but we'll take advantage of the bench. I don't think that's going to be the case either. And so while everyone else is making trades and getting players and changing their team to try and figure out what they're going to do, the Knicks have the greatest advantage. They have the greatest advantage over the rest of the league. They know who they are. They know the chemistry that they have built. They know they can trust one another. And now you're going to give them an entire offseason to make sure that the problems that the Spurs gave this offense aren't going to be a problem anymore. I mean, you just go back and watch that series. Look at how they played Cat as he got the ball at the top of the key. It wasn't Wemby. They were putting these smaller guards who knew wouldn't get beat off the dribble to put pressure in his face with length and energy, and it made it very difficult for him to make the right play. It took him away as a shooter. It took him away as a playmaker, and it made the pick and roll, off ball, all of that not as effective. So the Knicks now have to go study that film and come back and say, okay, here's how we're going to counter that counter. And maybe we're not going to see a ton of it in the regular season, because I think the Knicks roster as currently constructed is still going to get them to the playoffs. And maybe it's something that we see in the cup. Maybe it's something we see in the playoffs. But all I know is that Cat is bought in to this new style. We saw it in the playoffs. And give the Knicks an offseason to workshop it and bring it all, I think the league is in a lot of trouble. But it's more than just X's and O's and having Karl Anthony Towns run the offense. Check out this video here where Landry Shamet breaks down the selflessness behind all of these decisions, and it's the real reason that this offense was so dominant in the playoffs.